All right. I hope you're keeping cool out there. I think I'm ready to do the thing. Let's go do the thing. Let's do the thing. Let's do the thing. Let's do the thing. Here we go. I love it. I just got in under the tag, you guys. Like, that was crazy. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sandwich Show. I'm Dave Medina. You also know me as Davey's Eating a Sandwich on the many different social media platforms. I hope you're doing well out there. And we're doing a sandwich corner tonight, and we're gonna have a good time. Like we have John joining us. We have Mike in North Jersey joining us. Andy is on assignment, tackling the holes, tackling the holes tonight, and tackling the greens tonight. So it's good to. Well, we're glad to have them both then. So let me just take a minute just to get everybody on the Zoom call, and then we should be good to go for our Open Championship recap. Which, well, I mean, let's be honest, it was not what we hoped it would be. It's pretty damn decisive finish, but I do have to give a lot of credit to the winner this year, Brian Harman. Is someone actually I'm a bit of a Brian Harman Mongo, I will admit. I know that's not an opinion shared by the panel. But more by the entire panel anyway, and it's fine. Like I kind of get it, but you know, it's all good. You know, good on him. He did really well. His tee shots were fantastic. He got out of trouble in the third round. Good stuff. So let's go introduce our panel, and we're gonna start here. Make sure everything looks right first. There we go. Oh wow, look at that. First try. I got it all in the first try. First, we say hello to Mike in North Jersey. Mike, it's great to see you again. How's it going this evening?
Doing pretty well, Dave. Thanks for having me on, and I hope that you two likewise are doing well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. I am doing well, except for the fact that your thing's not up. Why is your thing not up? Give me a second here. Oh, there you go. Got it back up. Okay, great. But yeah, all in all, good. I'm just nursing this injury that I've had. I think I pulled either a calf muscle or an Achilles tendon or something like that, because I haven't been able to walk very well for the last 2 weeks. But other than that, I'm doing pretty well. And on to John. John, welcome back to the show. How's it going tonight?
Thanks, Dave, for having us back. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. Can't imagine there's going to be a lot of juice with the show tonight. Maybe it won't be very long because there wasn't much juice to this tournament. But hey, it's live sports. You can't always get an epic classic in everything you watch. And that's what Andy always says, and he's completely right about that.
Yeah, and one thing I thought it was interesting, that I was actually remarking this to some other friends like on Sunday. I'm like, is it you just me, or does the Open Championship seem to be more prone to this than other majors? I'm not exactly sure if that's just in my head or what, but you're right. It's we'll make the most of it. We should still have a good time. And Andy has some quick hitters too, which I'm going to play after we do the recap from the two of you. So I'll get that organized, and I'll get that played for everybody in a moment. Mike, first of all, I love the synergy of your backdrop. You also have it might even be the same exact hole. That's the backdrop of my OBS tonight. Like you have Masters. Is that what hole is that? Is that the 12th? It has to be.
You are correct, Dave. This is the 12th hole at Augusta National. And I figured for our last get-together, I chose what I thought was a topical background. And this, too, is a topical background because I found out during the British Open that I have not been selected for tickets in the Masters lottery for about the 14th year in a row. I don't know, like my second cousin, who I think John actually met once at that UConn football game many years ago, he's gotten tickets in a Masters lottery like 3 times. I don't know how he does it. Maybe I'm like shadow banned or something for making like I don't know, offensive tweet or two over the years. I don't know. Or perhaps it's just the odds are not in my favor. But unfortunately, I will not be attending the Masters this year outside of some unexpected developments coming up.
Oh, that stinks. I'm so sorry about that. That's the wrong tradition, unlike any other. I mean, we don't need that. We gotta break that. Well,
Dave, I think that line probably got you onto the ban list too. So tread carefully.
Yeah, it's probably too late for me anyway. It's all right. It's all good. So yeah, let's make the most of this. So we have I mean, again, like I said, not much to go. We didn't even have juice in like the third round. It was crazy. Like, it really all happened on Friday, Mike, right? I mean, you kind of, it was kind of you had different people in the lead in the first round at Royal Liverpool. And then you wake up on well, at least over here in the West Coast, you wake up and you find out that Brian Harman is just killing it on the course. And by the end of the afternoon, for many of us, he was way ahead. And then, he did have some trouble on the third round to start. It could have even been the final round. I'm not sure which round it was, but he definitely had some bogeys to start. He got out of it. And then that was pretty much it. Like, it was a great, he did a great job out of him. So I'm not really going to add more to that. Mike, I'm going to give it to you. What are your thoughts on Brian Harman's journey? He's always in the mix in a lot of PGA events. So it's interesting to see that. And when I say in the mix, I mean like decent, like maybe top 25 finish or something like that. But so he's always been around, Let's get your thoughts on Brian Harman's championship.
So to take a step back on his career here, if you go back to 2017, they had the Wells Fargo Championship, not at Quail Hollow, but at Eagle Point in Wilmington, North Carolina, which was a tremendous venue. It was difficult. The winning score was 10 under par. And Brian Harman is coming down the stretch looking to, he's in the mix with Dustin Johnson, who at that time had won, I believe, 3 consecutive tournaments. He was at the absolute height of his powers. And Harman at the time was ranked, I don't know, somewhere around 30th in the world or something. And, he has a very scrappy final round. And what he does is on the 18th hole, he sinks a 25-foot birdie putt to beat Dustin Johnson. And when that happened, there was there were rumblings amongst the golf community that, no one was expecting him to become a big star or anything, but as a under the radar pick in major championships and whatnot, his name started to get some traction. Then for whatever reason, his career fell off for a few years. He dropped outside of the top 100 in the world. Obviously that entails his results, which were nowhere near as good. But over the last year or two, he started to climb his way back up a bit quietly. He hadn't won an event since that 2017 Wells Fargo, but he had gotten himself up to, I think, 24th in the world before last week. He was in relatively good form. He had a few top 10s coming into this. And look, the guy's known for being a really good putter, and that's really what, won him the day. If you look at the strokes gained over the first 2 rounds, he gained over 4 strokes gained to the field in each of those rounds putting. He was 58 out of 59 from inside 10 feet. I mean, that's like something you see in a video game. You're not supposed to do that. And the only one he missed, the tournament was out of hand by then. So he was literally perfect from inside 10 feet while it mattered in this event. I think there's really 3 key parts of this tournament to talk about with regards to Brian Harman. The first would be that 4 straight birdie stretch on Friday, because if you look at that, all of his putts were from 18 feet or more that he made, with the exception of the birdie on the par 5, which he was able to get up and down from the rough in order to make that birdie. So that was just a ridiculous putting performance. And then he caps it off with the eagle on 18, which was also not a short putt. So he has the large lead going into Saturday. And on Saturday, he comes out and he bogeys 1 and 4. He's looking shaky. But what does he do? He birdies 5, gets his feet under him, plays steady the rest of the round, has a solid back 9. And meanwhile, Tommy Fleetwood, who's the closest one to him, can't do anything. Kind of does what we almost expect Tommy Fleetwood to do now, which is to not perform at his best in a big spot. Sunday, similar sort of thing happens. He bogeys 2. On 3, he gets very fortunate. 3 is the hole where the whole right side is out of bounds. He hits his second shot about a foot from the out of bounds on the right. He's in this very tall, wispy grass. And what does he do? He gets himself up and down from that. That ball could have gone anywhere. He could have sculled that over the green. He could have whiffed on it and left it in that tall grass, but he makes par there. Now, he makes another bogey after that on the par 5 where he hits his ball into the bush and he has to take an unplayable, but he gets out of there with bogey. But then what does he do? He birdies the next 2 holes, gets himself back to even, and he steadies things out. I sent a message to someone that, oh, it's on the verge of getting interesting when it got knocked down to 3, and then he immediately got the lead back to 5 strokes. So it was very in, and then Cam Yun, who was his closest pursuer, didn't have anything either to really push him on that day, and everyone else was too far behind. So listen, it was a very impressive performance from. I mean, listen, a lot of it was the greens and how often can you make that many putts? Probably not that often, but still, give him credit. He sunk everything the first 2 days, and then when he was in a position he had never been in before, where he did have some margin to work with, when it looked like things might be getting away from him, he was able to respond and get himself back on track. So, listen, impressive job by him. It really, a lot of guys, if they get to a moment like that, they'll wilt. He did not wilt. He was able to face adversity, and persevere through it. So, listen, very good job by him. I think Lee Westwood made this comment, and I think it's true. It's the way things are. If Rory McIlroy had won this event by 6 strokes, we would be, oh my God, what an incredible performance. Same thing for Scheffler, same thing for Jon Rahm, same thing for Brooks Koepka. But we're not going to say that about Brian Harman. Now, look, that's probably somewhat unfair, but just in terms of juice and whatnot, it lacks a little bit. But a very impressive performance. I think that will lock him up a Ryder Cup spot, well deserved. He'll actually be very valuable because Europe, Ryder Cups in Italy this year. The big advantage they really have is that they can set up the course to try to effectuate it towards the home side's games. So Europe always sets up the course very narrow, very high rough, because the U.S. usually is full of bombers. Brian Harman will be someone who you set it up like that, that's going to work for him. So good job by him. It's a nice career-defining win, something that you're never going to be able to take away from him. So very impressive performance.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I know that he's been pretty solid for, like, always. I was like, oh, it's only a matter of time before he wins, like, a regular event. Seeing him win a major is pretty remarkable. So, John, let's give it to you for your thoughts on Brian Harman's win.
Yeah, Mike did a nice job there. Really not too much more to add. I mean, he had been playing very well in the last, even just the last month or so. He'd been kind of building up to this performance. I mean, he always plays well with the Travelers, but that kind of like was a ignition for his game turning around. Like he finished second there, like he had like 66 basically in every round or better at the Travelers, and he kept it going in Detroit. And then he even played really well at the Scottish Open. He's just his putter kind of let him down on the weekend, even though we could barely see any of that tournament. Maybe we can get to that later on in the show. But he'd been playing very well now here for a month. So if you had told me before the week like Brian Harman's going to win, I wouldn't have said you were completely crazy because one thing that we've learned about Open Championships, it's just it kind of caters to the I'm gonna say older player because remember Tom Watson almost won, he was almost 60 years old, and we've had Darren Clark win, we've had all these kind of older guys contend, and guys, it's not always about like distance like bomb and gouge, it's about like precision and how you can get up and down with your short game and your putting, and that's exactly Harman's game. Like he's very accurate. He's great with his short game, and then obviously he put the putting together this week, making all those putts, and it was just a recipe for a dominant performance. And to have the lead for basically for 2.5 days, because when we got up on Friday morning, he had already like made his run and he's 10 under and he has like a 5-shot lead. So to have the lead from then like all the way through the weekend, just extremely impressive. And the fact he played in, he got a good end of the draw on Friday because the weather really, really turned kind of towards in the middle of the day. And then later in the afternoon, like guys were dropping like a rock, and he had posted that score, and he was in the clubhouse, and no one was really going to challenge that. So that was huge to have that advantage going into the weekend. And as Mike said, like every time that he faced just a little adversity, he bounced right back with birdies. And yeah, I mean, very, very impressive win. Do I think he's going to win another major? Probably not, unless it's set up again. Like he could win another Open Championship for sure, but the way like the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open are set up, and the Masters, they're just such long courses that tend to cater towards like the longest hitters on tour. Like that's definitely not him. But yeah, he's your typical like top 30 player on the FedEx Cup every year, and he finally broke through with this great short game and putting performance, and he's just I hate Azinger keeps calling him like a bulldog, like a gritty, gutty player, but I mean that's just kind of typecasting him, but it's kind of true. Like he just wasn't going to give up or give in with anything, and just showed a lot of fortitude and not wilting like a lot of players would in that position. So kudos to him, and yeah, definitely you won't be able to take away this performance from him.
100%. So we will get into the rest of the field in just a moment, but first let's get Andy's thoughts. He sends these thoughts to us via the voicemail. So let's see what we have from Andy on both the Harman and then the tournament at large. Here we go. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can play it. See, I knew this is an interesting message format, so let's see if I can play it this way. 1 second, everybody. Okay, here we go.
Couple thoughts on the Open from the past weekend. Very blah, very ho-hum, nothing inspiring, nothing dramatic. Everything from the course to the coverage to the winner. Hats off to Brian Harman for making the event rather boring and dull. He might be shorter than our pal RKO, but he did what he needed to do to make the event incredibly blah. And if the fiddles of the world love no emotion, no drama, no juice, everything robotic, well, maybe Fiddle become a Brian Harman fan, because he was very robotic, no emotion. Everything from that horrendous pre-shot routine looked like a broken robot. But there was nothing compelling about the tournament. Maybe John and Mike will find some things to unearth, and I'll listen to it. The course, there's nothing special about it. I know in 2006 the course was brown. Tiger won it in 2014 when Rory won it. So I get it. Everyone's going to know Royal Liverpool, Hoyle, the Beatles, but there's nothing memorable about that course. Maybe 17, 18's okay, but am I going to have my grandkids on my lap 50 years from now and be like, I remember when Brian Harman won the 2023 British Open. I remember exactly where I was. The answer is no. And Paul Azinger is a complete clown. That's basically it. I don't have much to add. If I wasn't a gambling degenerate, I would have turned that thing off at 9 a.m. West Coast time. And rather disappointing major season, in my opinion. Wyndham Clark, Brian fucking Harman. The first two with Koepka and Rahm. That's nice, but just do better golf season, do better. I'm on to the 3M Open, and I'm on to the FedEx playoffs. Let's go.
Let's go indeed. Thank you, Andy, for your thoughts. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing with any of that. Like, that's true. Like, some of these majors have been. We talked extensively about how disappointed the U.S. Open was too. So, having them back to back, and then having NBC do them back to back too, just kind of a lesser thing, but still pretty significant. And just all around, just like just a run of like two disappointing majors in a row. So we'll get to the rest of the field. We'll get into the course. I don't know how you want to tackle that. If you want to do the course thoughts into your like rest of the field segment, that's fine. Or we could just do it as a separate thing. But I'm going to give it to you first, Mike. Your thoughts on everybody. Again, what are we going to talk about? Like, everybody was way back. I don't know what else we can really say, but Mike, if you have any thoughts as far as the other players in the field this weekend, I'll give you the floor.
I guess I'll touch on the course first. Andy's right. It's not memorable. It's not visually spectacular. It doesn't have this wow factor that many of the links courses do, whether it's in terms of them brushing the seaside, whether it's something like St. Andrews where it literally starts and begins like literally in a middle of a town. But I will say this, though. It is a very, very, very good challenge for the professional game, even if it doesn't take your breath away. It's just location of the bunkers, the way they play, the angles and whatnot. It really it's a complete examination. So look, it shouldn't leave the rota. It won't. There's definitely more visually exciting places that they go to, but just in terms of the pure challenge that it offers, it's a good venue. Let's see. Rest of the field. Who should we bring up first? Let's see. Guess we can talk about Rory McIlroy with yet another not a I mean, it was a backdoor top 10 kind, although he was sort of in the top 10, but he was never really within striking range, which disappointing. This is now 7 out of the last 8 majors he's finished. I think at 7th or better, but you know, over the weekend he was really too far back. But he starts off both Saturday and Sunday with strong starts, but then he can't make a putt, and then the wedge starts to get cold, and not much that he could do there. Jon Rahm, he had the great 63 on Saturday, but he was just too far out of it to really seriously make a run, because you're not going to shoot 63 2 days in a row. It's just, I mean, I guess in theory you could, but you don't. Doesn't happen all that often. Tommy Fleetwood, I touched on again. Now, look, I know he's carrying a lot of pressure. Just to win in general, to win the Open, and specifically to win an Open Championship on the northwest coast of England, where he's from. It's a lot of weight to handle. But that being said, forget all that. In the Canadian Open, he hit some absolutely horrendous shots that a touring professional should not hit down the stretch and in that playoff. That guy gets tight. And it's a little bit sad to see, because he seems like a nice guy. He's likable, but when the pressure's on, he's got to figure out a way to deal with it better. Because right now he doesn't, and his career is not going to amount to what it should unless he figures that out in a hurry. And, gun to my head, he probably won't. You kind of are what you are after a while in this game. It's something we haven't discussed. What the hell is wrong with Justin Thomas? He's terrible right now. He's not going to make the FedEx Cup. He shot 81 or 82 the first day. He imploded at the Mass. He's just been horrendous. Now, I'm guessing he has some sort of lingering injury, because this would just be a stunning fall for a guy who, ever since he's gotten on tour, has been one of the most prolific winners out there. What does he have? 19, 20 wins, and he's only been out full time since 2015. You know what? That in today's game, that's a pretty good run, but he was just completely non-competitive again. And there's no way. I know he's like one of the guys. There's no way you can put him on the Ryder Cup team right now. Absolutely not. Unless, I don't know if he's planning on playing any of these next 2 weeks, unless he wins like 2 events. Maybe one could even get him on. But unless he does something like that, he can't be on the Ryder Cup team. I did see one funny tidbit when I was going over the scores. John Daly beat Dustin Johnson. Now, that doesn't entirely shock me, because when I saw Dustin Johnson at the beginning of this year, he looked 15 to 20 pounds heavier. When we saw him on The Last Swing, the Netflix documentary, it just clearly seemed like he was sort of okay with what he's accomplished in golf and just wanted to get paid. Well, you know what? listen, that's his prerogative. He doesn't have any teammates, so if that's what he would wants to do with his career, that's what he can do. But it seems like going to Live has sort of hurt his competitive juices. Koepka didn't do much, but look, it's hard to win more than one major in a year, so we'll give him a pass here. Anyone else I want to specific? Bryson DeChambeau, after he had a stretch of terrible results on Live Golf, where he was finishing near the bottom of the fields, had really started to pick it up again, but he didn't do much here either. Anyone else particularly disappointing? Colin Morikawa, I thought this course could work out for him a little bit, but he missed the cut. He didn't do anything. One person I will give it to as a nice story here was Alex Fitzpatrick, who, when he got Matt Fitzpatrick's younger brother, because when it was announced that he was going to be able to play in the Zurich Classic, the team event in New Orleans, there was a lot of uproar about that. Like, he doesn't deserve it, and why are we taking away a spot? Which, listen, there's a good amount of validity to that. But, he's gone out. He qualified for the U.S. Open, and he was in the mix for a top 10 at the Open Championship. So, you know what? It seems like he has a little bit of game on his own right. So we'll be keeping an eye on him. Anyone else that I want to talk about? Let me quickly get this here. Sepp Straka, after winning the John Deere, backed it up with another solid performance. I like his game. When he's really clicking, he can do some damage. He won the Honda Classic, which that doesn't have the greatest field anymore, but that's a very, very exacting sort of course. It's really going to test you. You can't get away with being a little bit off there. So he's one to keep an eye on, and he should be on the European Ryder Cup team, I would assume. I don't see how he couldn't be. The Austrian. Cameron Young, he was by far the leader this week in strokes gained tee to green, but his putting was absolutely horrendous. After a very promising 2022, he had kind of tailed off a bit this year. There was something where he was using a different ball. Now he's back using the old ball, and the results seem to be coming back. But the way he can hit the ball, he's someone to keep an eye on. And that's now 2 Open Championships in a row where he's been right in the mix. So he's definitely someone to have on your short list for potential major winners for next year.
Well, that's quite a comprehensive list. Thanks, Mike, for breaking that all down. Like, that's pretty awesome. Like, it does really cover. I agree with Straka too. That was pretty solid, pretty good stuff. So let's go over to John. John, let's get your thoughts on the field and the course. You can go that in any order you wish, as far as which one you want to do first.
Yeah, not much to say about the course. Although I could be wrong about this, but when they first played it in 2006 with Tiger, like, he really was like far, far under par, if I'm correct, right? It was like 18 or 19 under or something. Like, obviously it was a long time ago, but I remember it being like a huge birdie fest. And then the scoring was a little bit lower when McIlroy won. And then obviously this week there wasn't a ton of there was a couple of low individual rounds, but still, like, -4, -5, and you're in the top 10, which is what it should be for a major championship. I did like the change to the 17th hole. I think that little par 3. I thought that was pretty neat. And then they were able to lengthen 18. You had the hole out of bounds down the right side. So those are a couple neat holes. But other than that, I mean, nothing really stands out. That 17th hole, like, if there's no wind, it's pretty easy, and it's kind of hilarious because every person you saw on Sunday was like hitting the green to 10 to 15 feet. And then Tommy Fleetwood, they show right here. Here's Tommy Fleetwood on 17. He's literally in the desert, 30 yards behind the green, and somehow made a 6. It was just a tough scene there for Tommy. But that transition into the field, completely agree. Like, Fleetwood he seems like a great guy, but he's a huge choker on the weekends. And in PGA/majors, and his putting is just horrific. Like, he had at least 6 to 8 makeable birdie putts on Sunday, and he just missed every single one of them. And then, of course, he makes one on 18 when it really, doesn't really matter at that point. But yeah, he's definitely got to change something about the way he prepares mentally or what he does before these majors, because it's just not working out for him at the moment. Yeah, none of the big names truly contended. I mean, yeah, Rahm had his low round to get in the mix, but again, you're not going to be able to back that up 2 days in a row. You thought Rory might have had a little bit of juice on Sunday, but he couldn't really get anything going after his few early birdies. And then other than that, none of the big names are really up there at all. Hovland had a very disappointing Sunday. Scheffler didn't do anything until the final round. He had a nice round. So nothing at all really from the top of the board, which is kind of surprising because you look at past opens, like usually it's all the big names are right there at the top, and you didn't expect to see like Brian Harman and then Tom Kim, Sepp Straka. I guess Jason Day had been playing well, and Rahm did finish second. But in terms of like, you'd expect to have more big names up there on the leaderboard, in the top 10. But yeah, I agree on Straka. Like this guy, like he's just so hot and cold. Like honestly, I bet him to win the 3M Open this week because he's playing. His odds came out at 35 to 1, like which was really surprising to me. I thought he would be like in the 20s because when he gets hot like this with his irons and putting, he just keeps it going for weeks, and then like he'll crash and he'll suck again for a few weeks. But when he's really dialed in, not too many people can get on a roll like he can, and he really could have done better. Like he missed some short putts, but his iron game is just really on point at the moment. So I feel like the only thing is traveling back to the States and jet lag and kind of being in contention the whole thing. But whatever, for those odds, I'll take a chance on him to keep playing well this week in Minnesota. The other nice kind of feel good story up there was Matthew Jordan's, the Liverpool member who qualified and then ended up finishing in the top 10. And he really played well. I mean, if you look at the stats, like it wasn't a fluke. Like he had a really good tournament. So that's like, if we don't hear from the guy again, he's a European Tour player, but if we don't hear from him again, like that's like the crowning achievement of his career, like a top 10 at your home course in the Open. I mean, you really can't do much, much more than that. I mean, that was just a terrific performance. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Mike kind of touched on the guys that were like disappointing, missing the cut. Yeah, John Daly beat Dustin Johnson. He also beat Justin Thomas the first round anyway.
Ooh.
I don't know. I think
Wow.
Thomas is just like a head case at the moment. Like he is playing this week at the 3M to try to get into the top 70 for the FedEx Cup playoffs. He'll probably play next week too at Wyndham if he misses the cut here. But at some point, it's just maybe just needs to take some time off. Like he's not in any danger of losing his tour card or anything. So just reset and just come back for next year. Just very, very surprising how poorly he's been playing. But yeah, but of course he did just well enough on Friday to ruin my 5-leg 3-ball parlay, beating Victor Hovland by 1 shot, even to 1 over par. So that was great. So thanks for that, at least, JT.
No.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, really not much more to add in terms of some of these other guys that really just didn't have their A games this week, and maybe it's the culmination of just kind of all these tournaments like back to back and. Big tournaments, like in the summer with the designated events and whatnot, and just kind of caught up to everybody, but it just kind of worked out that way. Yeah, I guess I hadn't seen this guy, Shubhankar Sharma's name in about 6 years. The last time I saw him was World Golf Championship in Mexico years ago. He was like the 3rd round leader and hadn't heard from him since until this weekend. So good for him, I guess, to get his name back on the leaderboard. But yeah, that was definitely a name I did not expect to see. So yeah, it's pretty much the recap of a lot of the players that were kind of interesting over the weekend.
A big time kudos to both of you for coming for giving us the rundown of all that, because like it's not the easiest thing to do when you have like such a runaway leaderboard, right? So it's pretty good stuff. And I love where you're coming from. Like the angles are great. Yeah, didn't JT like hose Andy too on some level, like in the first round too? Like it seemed like it was a rough weekend just for everybody. That's a tough spot. So yeah, that really sucks. Okay, so Mike, I mean, we don't have a lot to really get into as far as the television broadcast or the media coverage. Although I think you did make the point, though, Mike, that the shot tracker is a much improved for the Open this year. So that's pretty cool. So feel free to get your thoughts on the media.
Yeah, a few things on that. Look, the positive takeaway on the coverage of the Open is that if you have Peacock, you can watch, in theory, from the first shot to the last shot. The problem is, and this is you're really starting to see this on Twitter, is that people, or X, excuse me, it's X. It's X. Apparently Zuckerberg has a patent on that, but we'll see how that plays out. Did you see that they were trying to remove the Twitter bird logo from the Twitter headquarters in San Francisco, and they didn't have the work permit to do it, so the police showed up and stopped them?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
What a shit show, though, Mike. Anyway, carry on. I'm sorry.
Be sending out Zeets soon. That's what I guess that's what they're calling them at this point.
It's horrific. Are you guys on Threads yet? I would recommend that.
I am, but the way it works, it's just like, I don't know.
It looked pointless because you can't see like a feed, and then it like randomly puts things in there that they think you like. So it sounds.
Oh yeah. I struggle with that too. A little bit too much Facebook in there.
It's basic. Well, the thing is, it forces you to link up with your Instagram, and I've now gone active on Instagram after having a burner. So I don't necessarily want people that I like actually know seeing what I'm doing on Threads, and me tweeting out or sending out Mongo like messages during sporting events when gambling events don't work out. So
yeah,
I mean, anyway, where was I? Okay, the coverage. So what you're seeing is that people are finding creative ways to be able to watch the Sky Sports feed broadcast in Britain, and they just have so much fewer commercials. They don't have all this playing through stuff, and it's not making NBC look good. The problem with the NBC broadcast really for this event is just the amount of commercials can be staggering. There's times where you'll see like 3 golf shots commercial, 5 golf shots commercial, and it's too much. The issues that we talked about in the last broadcast are still there, which is that instead of being like this sort of, it's just the chemistry between the announcers is lacking. You don't get that sense that everyone is sort of, sitting around a room watching the tournament and enjoying each other's company. You don't get that. Everyone is very much by the book, static, and doing their own thing. There was one interesting wrinkle, though. We saw Nick Faldo. He made an appearance with Mike Tirico briefly for a couple of days, which was nice to see. It would have been nice if they just could have kept him there and, I don't know, maybe put a few high-tension wires in front of Paul Azinger's path to the booth so he would trip and fall, so he wouldn't have to be subjected to him. But but that does go to show that, because Nick Faldo was very, very emotional in his last CBS broadcast. And we did hear that he talked to them and he wanted to only do a part-time schedule, and they said no. So you can clearly see with what Faldo was doing that he did not want to retire full-time. He just wanted to, cut back the schedule, and he really didn't have a choice. He's doing some stuff for Sky Sports in addition. So I don't know. I guess we'll see him in the Open Championship for, who knows? It seems like he's struck up a deal with that. So that's good. But yeah, listen, there's a lot of coverage, but is the coverage itself great? No, it could be a lot better. Speaking of the 3M Open coming up this week, I have a feeling that, how they always have that pointless CEO segment in every event? Well, 3M last month paid out $10 billion for polluting several water systems and putting cancer-causing agents in the water. Somehow, I don't think Jim Nantz is going to bring that up to the CEO of 3M during the the softball interview, which they do. I don't understand. See, if I ran one of those companies, I would decline to do the interview, and I would just say, look, here's what I want you to do. Just say that Michael Lynch has declined to do the interview. He wants us to be focused on the golf before us. I think that would bring so much more goodwill than hearing the canned lines, the phony charity bits that they're doing, all this stuff that everyone just looks at and it's just like, who cares? I don't want to hear this. Can I watch the golf, please? I don't know why someone hasn't thought of that. If you're watching and you think of that, please give me a cut on your salary for next year, because it is a good idea. It really is. So
Well, how about next year when Liv's involved? We'll be like, so we're here with the Crown Prince, and so tell me your thoughts on you know, Jim interviewing the Crown Prince next year. But anyway, I don't know. I'd be shocked if Nance is doing this tournament. I bet it's Andrew Catalon, and then we'll get Nance for next week, and then the FedEx playoffs, because CBS actually has the FedEx Cup playoffs this year, so we do not have to listen to Paul Isinger again until next March. Thankfully.
that is a terrific development.
Yeah, I like that too. I think I'm in favor. So, John, anything you want to add as far as media coverage?
Yeah, no, Mike hit it all. I did make the point about the shot tracker, and I could be wrong. I didn't think they had this last year for the Open. Their app was kind of behind the other majors. I mean, nothing will touch the Masters, but it was always a little bit better than the PGA Championship in the U.S. Open. But they added the virtual shot tracker this year, where you could see on the where the ball is going, landing on the course, and how far away it is, and it definitely added something even more to the coverage of following the action. So as us who like to wager on it, it was good and frustrating at the same time, that you could see exactly where every group's ball was during the event. The holy grail would be the Masters, where you get a camera on every player, but obviously it's a little different where there's only 75 players, where here you have a full 156 going from they tee off at 6 a.m. British time, and the last group is 4 o'clock in the afternoon British time. So it's quite a big production to go through that. But certainly won't complain about what we were given this year in terms of the the technology online.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good stuff, and yeah, that definitely a great job of you bringing that up, John. And I think that's it. That's all we have is for the Open. If any of you want to add anything from the Open, that's fine. But in the meanwhile, I'm just gonna. Other than that, Mike, I'll give it to you for the road ahead. You mentioned the FedEx playoff coming up, and then a few other events. Some of them will probably be more interesting than others. And Mike, by the way, if they ever I think they think that could be a definite career move, like becoming a media consultant, Mike. Like, that was pretty solid advice, actually. That's pretty solid right there. But anyway, your thoughts on the road ahead for pro golf?
Yeah, so as we've alluded to, we have the 3M Open in Minnesota this week. Look, let's be honest, not much juice there. I like Wyndham, though. Wyndham is the week afterwards. You got guys who are trying to get into the FedEx Cup playoffs. It's this old Donald Ross course in North Carolina, which sort of winds through, and it wasn't designed as like a housing development course. They didn't have those ideas back then, but it's sort of like winds through a neighborhood, and there's a lot of undulating greens and stuff, and it's just it looks like a nice place to play golf. So I do enjoy that tournament. You got a couple things going on. FedEx Cup, the first round is now in Memphis, Tennessee at TPC Southwind, which, if not a spectacular venue architecturally speaking, is usually a very good challenge. Although, it can be so humid then that things can get very soft, but it normally is a tough, if yet fair test for the pro players. I think after that, it's Olympia Fields outside of Chicago, which is, if you hear rumblings, they're sort of trying to audition themselves for a major championship slot. Because I think the last time they had an event there, the winning score was only 5 or 6 under par. So they were looking for a U.S. Open. I don't know if they're going to get one with how full the U.S. Open schedule is, basically for the next 25 years. And then Tour Championship in Atlanta. And then, look, I mean, we haven't heard much since the Live deal, PGA Live merger, whatever you want to call it, restructuring. There's still, from what we've heard about the court filings and whatnot and the investigations, is that there's a lot up in the air. That basically their agreement was, we're not going to fight each other anymore, and we're going to work something out. So we'll see what further details come out. But I think we speculated a lot last time. There's really not much to add here. It is funny that one of the provisions that they were talking about was that Greg Norman would have to be fired. So he was really just put up as the fall guy, which I don't think was a surprise to anyone. I guess I'll quickly touch on major venues next year. I might as well, touch on something. So Masters, obviously. PGA Championship is at Valhalla. So that has always produced exciting finishes, exciting events. So we'll see if that trend continues. Perhaps it's a little bit different because it's in May as opposed to August. U.S. Open is at Pinehurst, which I know John is not a fan of. I'm a little bit more positive on that course, but they're having it there way too often. It's going to be at Pinehurst 3 times in the next 11 years, which doesn't make sense, frankly. And then Royal Troon, which the last time we saw that was the great Henrik Stenson, Phil Mickelson duel. So maybe we'll get some drama there. But, other than that, listen, we got a couple relatively low leverage events coming up before the FedEx Cup playoffs. The golf will wrap up before the NFL starts, which is always a good thing because, it's the last 2 weeks of the FedEx Cup were always just pointless. No one was watching them. So that's good. I'm sure we'll get some exciting golf, but that's one of the things about this new schedule is that even though it's only a few more weeks, but it seems much longer now. It's July, and we got to wait till April 2024 before we see a major again. That's a long wait. So I don't know. Baseball's not very exciting this year. The New York locals are both not very good. The Red Sox are in the mix for a wild card, but they're not going to do anything in the playoffs, honestly. So I don't know. I'm sort of ticking down the days, college football, and seeing Sam Hartman line up under center for Notre Dame and see what he can do. So.
And then on the NFL side, you got Brett Favre going for the Jets. So it's going to be. I was kind of just curious, just off the top of your head, what would your expected win total be for the Jets this year? And I was thinking 8.
I think you meant Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets,
what did
but
I say?
It's okay, Dave. Brett Favre went to the Jets too, so.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I meant Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, sorry. What on earth?
I saw the Jets over under win total is not 10.5. I think I'd go under on that.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah. Even with extended schedule, I definitely think it'd be under that for sure. But it'd probably be close. It'd probably be 7 or 8 or 9. It's probably gonna be around there. Okay, John, just anything you want to add as far as the weeks ahead in golf?
Yeah, I do like this course coming up in Minnesota for the 3M Open. There's just lakes everywhere. They call it the land of 1,000 lakes for a reason, Minnesota. But yeah, every hole there's a lake on the course. You remember last year, Scott Piercy had a 6-shot lead, going around the back 9, and he just completely imploded, finding lake after lake. And then Tony Finau ended up winning. So it was actually, the field isn't great. It's actually better than I thought it was going to be. But the course is pretty intriguing. The 18th hole is a crazy par 5. It just goes completely around a lake. And it's very risk reward where you can, lay up to the left and then just kind of wedge, or you can just take a wood directly over the lake. It produces some good drama. So it's an interesting course anyway. I just kind of wish the field was a little better. But I'll be into it. I told you I already bet Sepp Straka. I'll probably make a few other bets before Thursday. Wyndham's always interesting just because of the guys qualifying or not qualifying for the FedEx playoffs, which are now 70 for the first tournament in Memphis, as opposed to the previous 125, which I don't agree with. I thought it was much better with 125, but whatever, it is what it is. And then they're going to go down to 50 for the BMW, which used to be 70, and then the standard 30 for the Tour Championship. And then I guess the tournaments in the fall that schedule is out are going to be kind of the guys that didn't make the top 70, you're basically playing to get to stay in the top 125 and keep your tour card for next year. And then the FedEx Cup season will start on January 1st rather than have like this wraparound business like with points accruing in the fall. Like whatever happens in the fall and where you are at like say November 30th, that's like your position, for next year, whether you kept your card or not. So I don't know if they're going to be awarding FedEx Cup points or how that's going to work. But there's some system in place. And yeah, like Mike said, we still do not have a schedule for 2023. Usually it would come out right about now, maybe like next week at the latest. So clearly there's, they're waiting to see what happens here with this whole, court situation with Liv, because they got to be working on something here with these two tours. It'll be very interesting to see what they come up with, but they really can't hold off that long. I mean, these venues and people have to make plans. So going to be very interesting to see when that comes out, the 2024 PGA Tour schedule. So yeah, interesting next month of golf, and the Tour Championship ends August 27th. So we'll have a little week 0 college football the day before, just to kind of wet our whistle, and then the following week we're right into it with Labor Day weekend and week 1 of college football. So we made it through the summer, and it's gonna be great. So yeah, enjoy golf for the next month, and it'll take you right into football season.
I hear it. I love it. And then so let's look at the FedEx Cup in general, since we're not going to get to speak together for a while as far as golf is concerned. Like let's look at the FedEx Cup. Do you have any predictions? Who do you think is going to win, Mike?
I mean, I have no idea, Dave. The way the FedEx Cup works is they give you so many points for winning a FedEx Cup event that in theory, anyone who gets into that top 70 could win it. I mean, gun to my head, I would guess Scotty Scheffler would probably get off the schneid with his putting a little bit. I think TPC Southwind, followed by Olympia Fields, with the way that Scotty Scheffler strikes the ball, will give him more of an edge than he normally would have. So he picks up a win or two there, and away he goes. And we know that Rory always seems to do well in the FedEx Cup. So I would say those are your top two. But because of the way the point system works, it's very volatile. So it's hard to say. But, if you were a betting man, you might not bet on them because you won't think that the odds are worth it. And speaking of, to go back to something, how the hell was Rory anywhere from plus 525 to plus 650 at the Open? That makes no sense. If you wanted to put Rory as the overwhelming favorite to finish top 5 or even top 3, I would have gotten that. But those odds did not make sense. I mean, that was kind of verging on like Tiger Woods post knee surgery and sex scandal and everything then, where it was just, why are his odds that? But anyway, I would say that those two are probably the if you put a gun to your head and said who's going to win the FedEx Cup, it'd be one of those two would be your choice, I would think.
Solid picks, because the front end of the season was all Scheffler, so it makes a lot of sense. He's been in the mix a lot this year, so it's a pretty solid pick, I think. John, what would your predictions be if you have any?
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with those two guys. I mean, throw, I guess, a kind of an oddball out there. Maybe Patrick Cantlay. He seems to do well in the playoffs. I don't know. Like, ask me after the BMW Championship, because then you'll know the starting strokes for the Tour Championship, and then you really can make a prediction. But anyone who wins the first event, even if they're like 55th, they're gonna leap to like in the top 3. So it's kind of tough to really make a prediction. But yeah, this event, the Open, was the first time Scheffler had finished outside of the top 12 since last like October. So he's just incredibly consistent. He's probably gonna start in the top 3. So if he finishes like third in the first 2 events, he's gonna be right there to win it in Atlanta. So you can't go wrong with that choice. But let me just bring up, we had a little bit of time. What happened at the Scottish Open? and not just Rory winning the tournament in just dramatic fashion, stealing it away from Robert McIntyre, which would have been a huge story, but the complete disgrace of them pushing up tee times due to wind in Scotland, a course that is on the water, built and designed to handle heavy winds, and the PGA Tour is moving up tee times. So basically, your entire audience in America could not watch this event live from start to finish. Like, yeah, if you got up early enough, you could watch the last few holes. But when you had coverage planned to go to 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you completely buried it 2 days in a row, just a horrible, horrible job. I don't know who made that decision, but that person should be fired because the Open Championship would have never done that. And we know that for sure. They would play, literally balls would have to be moving, you know, inches on the greens for that to happen. And just a complete horrible, horrible decision by the PGA Tour and ruined like a really great event that could have been must-see television with Rory making that comeback and birdieing the last 2 holes to win. So just completely mishandled by the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I can't disagree on that. Mike, wait, did we get in? Are we? Yeah, Mike, I'm sure you have some thoughts on this too.
Well, not. I will just say that was well put by John. Yeah, I'm not sure what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was too much of a panic over not wanting there to be a delay the week prior to a major championship. But I will say that a few years ago, it seemed like after all the uproar about what would happen when you would move times up, where people were just like, this is ridiculous. It's not on live TV. What are you doing? That they figured out. Oh, I remember this happening a few years ago where they're like, okay, you know what? The CBS coverage is on the Golf Channel and we're showing it live. And they did that for a year. And I guess whoever the suits are were just like, no, we're not doing that anymore. Not happening. So that's made the coverage quality worse. Now, for me, that's not a big deal. I have a smart TV now. So I literally just took my laptop, plugged in CBSSports.com, and just cast it to the TV. But, the golf audience trends older. A lot of them are people who would, like write down a list of the NFL Network's top 50 greatest players and then physically mail it to Mike Francesa. You get those types watching the events.
Yeah.
And they're not going to know how to do that. So, look, if you're going to do that, one, only do it if you really need to do it. And like John said, why do you need to do it on a links course in Scotland? It doesn't make sense. And if you're going to do it, you got to make it easier to watch. You can't have Rory McIlroy having one of the great finishes of his non-major events in his career and not have it on live TV. It's just, with the way the world works now, you can't do that.
Right. No, it very well said, everybody. Like I can't add anything to that. I mean, just a terrible job out of the powers that be in that scenario. All right, so time for final thoughts. This is certainly a very early time for this, but nonetheless, we'll go to Mike and go ahead and wrap us up, and we'll go to John too.
Ooh, what do I have to say here? Honestly, not very much. We're just, we're still in this very much this state of flux like we were last time we spoke, where we know that there's a pending merger between the PGA Tour and the Saudi Public Investment Fund. And, we expect that golf is going to be radically different. I don't know how much different it'll actually be next year. Maybe the first time you really start to see something is like fall 2024. Maybe they integrate not exactly the live model, but some sort of like team-like thing as a few I don't know if they'll call them exhibition tournaments in the fall. So I don't know. We're still here on this precipice of change, and we don't know exactly what direction things are going to go in. So, like John alluded to, we'll all be looking very carefully to see what developments there are when more details come out, and what the future of live is. Is it folded? What the tour schedule is, and what happens with the players who left. So a lot of questions. The that's a lot of questions that are of the type and kind that was not something that we were considering a few years ago. So that's where we are. We're on the verge of the unknown, and hopefully we get some answers over the next several months before they're off playing in Hawaii to kick off 2024.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty indeed, Mike. I can't argue. Yeah, for sure. And sometimes change can be exciting, but definitely there's just a little bit more eerie than not. But there could be some excitement in it too. So we'll see. John, let's get your final thoughts.
Yeah, couldn't have said it much better. Pretty dull season. Well, the last two majors were a little bit dull, but although Wyndham Clark, he could have lost it there on the back nine. But yeah, you can't always get these unbelievable finishes and jam-packed leaderboards in golf. You kind of take what you can get, and Harman was certainly impressive to wrap up the golf calendar, and hats off to him. And yeah, we're just in a kind of state of flux with the Live PGA merger, and we'll see where it takes us. And I'm just fascinated to see what happens with the PGA schedule or Live schedule, whatever they want to call it, in the next year. If there's going to be any adjustments, or like Mike said, we're going to be waiting until maybe the end of 24 to see if anything happens. So yeah, enjoy the last month of golf, and we'll just take it from there and keep an eye on things.
I like it. Thank you again for doing this, Mike and John. I appreciate you bringing such good insight into the table, and it's especially valuable when the tournament really isn't that juicy at all. And that's pretty much what we had this time. So I appreciate your time, Mike. Have a great rest of your summer. I hope it's a fun time, or it's a good time. Same to you, John. And thanks for doing these. This has been great. Great to hear from Andy too. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see each other again soon, I hope.
Take care, guys. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Mike. Take it easy. All right. Yeah, John and Mike back at it again. Yeah, that was pretty good stuff. We wrap another season of golf coverage on the corner. And through all the iterations of the podcast we've had, it's gone through a lot of great moments. But sometimes you end up with tournaments like this one, and it's great that we can still get some really good insight and analysis out of it. And so it's always great to have Mike and John and Andy join us for all the scenarios. So that's it for us tonight. Those of you watching us live on YouTube, you can come back. You can join us on the Sandwich Show over on Twitch. So we're going to go back to Twitch at the top of the hour, and we're going to play some mini golf. We're going to play golf with your friends. If you want to join us, twitch.tv/Davey's Eating a Sandwich. But everyone else, it's been fun. Thank you again for joining. If you missed any part of it, the replay of this episode will be on YouTube at this exact spot, this exact link. And those of you who are listening to the podcast on our various platforms, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you can catch a video replay of this show on YouTube. Just look for @Davey's Eating a Sandwich on YouTube, and you can find the Sandwich Corner there. Don't forget, we're also on, as mentioned, we have our regular Sandwich Show live streaming schedule over on twitch.tv/Davey's Eating a Sandwich, and I'm available on socials too. Look for the same handle. This has been a blast. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.